Hello everyone, welcome again to the Rob and Bay channel. Today I'm going to be answering some questions that people have left in the comments of the videos that I've made in the past related to my life as a Buddhist monk. So I have 15 questions here and they are not arranged in any particular order. I'll just go through them one by one. Do you ever feel lost in not knowing so much when starting? What would you recommend for learning the Thai language? There's kind of two separate questions there. Not knowing so much when starting, if it's referring to Buddhism, then it was kind of difficult. Obviously, you have Theravada Buddhism, Mahayana Buddhism, Vajrayana, and they all have their own collections of writings, and I had no idea where to begin, just started out reading stuff on Wikipedia. And the first direction I went was with Mahayana sutras, because they seem to be very popular where I was looking for information, and I did not vibe with them at all. It kind of turned me off to Buddhism for a while, and then I went back and tried to find what was the oldest writings that I could find, because I really liked the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path that I read about on Wikipedia, and that was obviously very foundational. So I went to see which texts focused on those and found out that it was the Pali Canon of Theravada Buddhism for the most part. And that's a very large collection, so I picked up In the Buddha's Words, and that gave me some direction. So there's plenty of other stuff you can read from there if you're interested in a particular lineage, like the Thai Force tradition, or a certain lineage in that tradition, or if you're interested in the Burmese tradition. But reading In the Buddha's Words was a pretty good foundation for learning the basics of Buddhism that prepared me to understand everything that I came across in the other traditions. And as for the Thai language, I'll just suggest picking up Thai for Beginners, very good foundational book by Bejawan Phumsan Becker. And then you kind of have to do your own research from there. I like to do a lot of flashcards with a spaced repetition system. You can read about that more online elsewhere. Next question. What were living conditions like? Did you live in a kuti, outdoors, or in a room? If you lived outdoors in a kuti, did animals like mice or snakes ever enter your kuti to bother you? So in all the monasteries that I stayed at, as is quite common in the Thai Forest tradition, I did have my own kuti, which is like a small cabin. It's like a very small cabin, typically no bathroom inside the kuti. Like at Abhayagiri, it's a very large forest, so all the monks have their own small cabin there. In Thailand, same thing, although there are some monasteries where it's not even a kuti that you're staying in. You have like a small bamboo platform that's maybe 3.5 feet by like 6.5 feet, and then you just hang in like a large umbrella that doesn't have any handle over your head, and then you have a mosquito net that drapes down, and you just kind of like tuck that underneath a plastic mat when you went to sleep at night. And I quite enjoyed that. Obviously there's more chance for animals to mess with you when you're on a bamboo platform out in a jungle. Like when I was staying at that place, like a leech, I believe, like crawled up. It might have gotten on me before that, but it might have like crawled up onto the platform and then latched onto me. Mice, like snakes, can be a problem. Like Lumpal Pasno, the abbot of Abhayagiri, who founded this place that I'm talking about, one night he woke up and like felt something kind of like poking at the back of his head, and he kind of like brushed it away thinking it was a mouse, and then it sort of started tapping at his head again, and then he got his flashlight, turned around and looked at it, and it was a fairly large cobra, and it kind of reared up like this and then slithered away. So snakes can mess with you there. As far as the kutis, though, like sealed, contained kutis, at Abhayagiri, not really a problem. And even in Thailand, all the kutis that I stayed in were typically pretty well sealed off. Like you had screens, and there were no large cracks in the floorboards or in the ceiling, so the snakes couldn't get in. But mice in Thailand were definitely a problem. You can hear them scurrying around up in the roof sometimes, which is annoying. Did you need money to have this experience of living in monasteries? Did you pay for your air tickets and other travel, or did the monastery fund these? So as a monk in the Thai forest tradition, they're very strict about monks not having money and not directly having any dealings with money themselves. So lay people can donate money to the monastery, but that money is controlled by a group of lay people. How it's set up depends on the monastery. With most Western monasteries, you have like a board of lay people who are in control of the money. They know what money comes in and goes out. And then you have a lay person, typically one who lives at the monastery, who, if anything has to be bought, then you can ask them, and then they will buy anything that needs to be purchased, handle any transactions. As far as travel goes, depends a lot on the monastery. So when I went back home to visit family, then I knew a layperson who was aware that I hadn't been home to visit in some years, and they offered to just buy me a ticket so I could go home and see my mom. And then when I went back to visit her a second time, my mom just bought the plane ticket herself. But when you're traveling between monasteries, then the monastery will typically pay for that ticket. So when I went to go and stay in Thailand, after my second Pansa, before my third rains retreat as a monk, then Abhayagiri bought the plane ticket for me to go out to Thailand. And that's how it works in pretty much all monasteries. Like if you're traveling for the purpose of going to stay at a monastery, then the monastery that you're traveling from, or like your home monastery, will typically cover the cost for you. Is there any disagreement in the monastery's practice? I can't see much about teamwork practices in Theravada, the Noble Eightfold Path. So I assume this is talking mostly about like differences within the community, like monks having problems with each other, or like monks think that something should be practiced this way and not that way. That definitely does come up. I appreciate it that in monasteries in the West, or at least certainly at Abhayagiri, they do put a lot of emphasis on communal harmony. And so, for example, at Abhayagiri, every 2 weeks, they have what's called a circle meeting. So every 2 weeks, the whole community, sometimes it's just the monks, sometimes it's just the samaneras and anagarkas, sometimes it's everyone, depending on where you are in the schedule. But the point of these meetings is just to bring everyone together, to just speak about where they are, if they're appreciative of anything. And usually no problems come up at these meetings because the community is in harmony. But if there are any problems, then this space has been created and there are enough good feelings that have been created within the community over the period of months and years that you can bring it up in this space. And there's not really a feeling of like anger when you're bringing anything up. There aren't really any super strong feelings, but the space is there. And while there aren't any explicit teachings of teamwork, maybe in the Theravada tradition, there is actually one sutta where the Buddha, I believe like the timeline of this is that the Buddha had just been at a place where this group of monks that had been living together, and they were bickering over a very small matter, like about how a water dipper should be handled in the bathroom, and they were at each other's throats and causing so much commotion and so many problems that even like the lay people who knew them were getting annoyed with these monks being at each other's throats. And then the Buddha went and stayed with another group of monks, very well practiced monks, and he saw that they were getting along very well. And the Buddha asked them, how are you guys getting along so well here? And then the monk who he's speaking with just explains that when one monk comes back from Bindabat and the others haven't returned, then he'll prepare like the sitting places and the water. And then if one monk finishes doing something early, then he'll just go on his way. And if there's anything that has to be done, then they do it. And they keep talking to a minimum, and they come together and meet in harmony and disperse in harmony. And living like that, they live together like milk and honey, because they mix well, apparently. So there aren't necessarily a lot of teachings about teamwork directly in the suttas in the Pali Canon, but you will see the Buddha speaking very highly of communities that live in harmony. Will you explain why monks go into hermit caves for extended periods and what is done during those times? Also, how are child and teen monks treated and fed? Are they not allowed to eat after noon as well? Another two-part question. So monks will go into, it doesn't have to be caves. It can be a cave, or just they go to their kuti and they don't have to participate in the regular work schedule and alms round and stuff like that. And the reason why they go into these periods of retreat is just to have even more time to focus entirely on their practice. And typically during these times, monks will just do a whole lot of sitting and walking meditation, like pretty much just all day and all night. They might read some suttas every now and then, or listen to some Dhamma talks to get some inspiration going. But that is all they're doing. They're just meditating in various ways. Some monasteries and traditions will put more emphasis on it than others. Truth be told, in the Thai forest tradition in Thailand, typically if you're living in a monastery, then you aren't going to have any like periods of retreat where you're free from the regular work schedules. It's just not a thing that exists in most Thai forest communities. Like if you're in a monastery, then you just have the same schedule day in, day out, and there's never any break from it unless you choose to fast, to skip the meal, in which case you usually do not have to go and do the work period. Obviously you don't have to go on alms round if you're skipping a meal. In the West, in the Thai forest tradition, perhaps just because of our temperaments as Westerners, we do have periods of retreat where for periods of perhaps 2 weeks, you don't have to go and participate in the work schedule, and you're just free all day long, which is quite nice. I always enjoyed that. In Thailand, if you are going to have a period of retreat, then typically you have to go and just go off on your own. Like there are small places, it might be like a cave owned by someone, or someone might have like a kuti on their property. Or there might be some monasteries where they're more open to monks going on retreat. And so if you're in Thailand, then that's what you have to do if you're interested in that. And it is something that can be hard to do and hard to appreciate. I remember Lumpal Pasano, the abbot of Abhayagiri, he was on a sabbatical, and he was spending several months of his time at a cave in Thailand, and one of the lay people there asked him what he does all day long, and Paul just said, I sit and I walk, and sometimes I read, and then I sit and I walk, and that's it. And the lay people's comment was, that sounds really boring. And I mean, if you aren't into meditation, it can be boring. As for teen monks or child monks, So typically you don't have that many people under the age of 20 ordaining as samaneras, novices these days. If you're under 20, you can't ordain as a bhikkhu, like a fully ordained monk. But even if younger kids do come in to the monastery to ordain in Thailand, then they do still have to abide by the rule about not eating in the afternoon, which is one reason why personally I believe it's not so great for a very young person to come in, ordain in the monastery, because it is important to eat, but it's also important to maintain the rules and the structure. We can't just make exceptions because we feel like it. But usually, if you have a monastery where they do frequently have younger people coming to ordain, like one monastery in Thailand, very well known, their whole thing is that they have a summer program where people can bring their kids, usually like younger teens, to come and ordain for a period of some weeks, a month or something. And they do try to make like things that you can fill your stomach with as available as possible in the afternoon. There are certain things you can eat. It varies from region to region. Having done a total of 13 Goenka Vipassana retreats, I would love to spend some time at a Theravada monastery. However, I'm 57. Is there something like an upper age limit to join a monastery? So if you're just going to a monastery to stay as a guest, then there isn't really any upper age limit. As long as you can get around just fine and don't require any like physical assistance, and can abide by the rules about not eating in the afternoon, then you're perfectly welcome. Now, the monks do understand if you're quite elderly, you might need some food in the afternoon, and they aren't really going to say anything to you. If you do have to eat like a small amount, like something simple, like not cooking yourself in the afternoon, but like if you do have to have like a small amount of like a snack or something to help you get through it as a guest in the monastery, you can do it if you need to. When it comes to ordaining, then it's more of an issue, and it's going to depend a lot on the community and the place. In Thailand, it's not uncommon for people to ordain in their late 50s and 60s. I mean, there's so much support in Thailand, and it's in a way like much cheaper, like just living in Thailand. That is not a big deal. In the West, resources are more limited, and so if you're going to come in at that age, then you kind of like start to be more of a burden on the community when you're still just a fairly junior monk. And you can have a lot of views and opinions, which a lot of people, even if they're ordaining in their 30s, at that point, you're still pretty set in your ways. And you'll sort of like chafe and rub up against not being able to do things in the way you want to do them. And so monasteries in the West typically won't ordain that many people over the age of 40. There are some exceptional cases. I know one monk at Abhayagiri, he came and stayed for the first time at Abhayagiri when he was about almost in his mid-50s, I think. However, he was exceptionally well-behaved and pleasant and very easy to work with. You told him he had to do something in a certain way, and he said, "Oh, okay, thanks for letting me know. I'll do it that way." And he's always been that way. Wonderful person, wonderful monk. If you're that way, hey, maybe the community will be okay with it. I was wondering, since you've disrobed, what happened to all of your possessions as a monk? Were they given back to the monastery, or were you able to keep them? Were your robes given back, or did you get to keep them? And what about your alms bowl and other items? So when you disrobe as a monk, if you want to, you would be allowed to keep all of your possessions, because strictly speaking, they are yours to hold on to. Although the general practice is that you would just give all of your monk stuff back to the monastery. That's what I did. Like the alms bowl, like it's meaningful. It's something you've had for years. The robes, again, it's something you wore for years, but it's not really of any practical use to you, and it's of more use to the monastery. There's a sutta where the Buddha is talking about monks disrobing, and he says that a monk who disrobes is like a bird who's caught in strong winds. Like its wing goes one way, one wing goes the other way, its tail goes this way, its head goes that way. In the same way, when a monk disrobes, his bowl goes here, his upper robe goes there, his outer robe goes there. So it has always been the common practice that you do just relinquish everything. But then the community will, of course, be supportive of you when you disrobe, and so you need clothes and some basic items to get started again. And if there aren't like lay people who are at the monastery, happen to be there when you disrobe, and they're interested in supporting you, then the monastery will have like one of the lay people who handles money for them go out with you and get some clothes. In my case, I disrobed, and there were several people there who were very supportive, and they gave me some money to go out and get stuff. Having been ordained as a monk, do you regret the moments of your life that are gone? I assume what this means is, do I regret having lost the time that I ordained as a monk where I could have been living as a lay person? No, I do not. I really enjoyed my time as a monk. For the most part, it was like some of the happiest times of my life. I had many amazing experiences that people just don't get to have. I got to meet some incredible monks who shared some pretty incredible things with me that instilled a lot of faith in me. So even having disrobed, I still have faith in Buddhism, in part because of the things that I heard from them. And experiences aside, my mind definitely changed from having lived as a monk for 10 years. Like, I'm certainly much more calm, and I can deal with the difficulties of life as they come and go. Like the period of time right now, I'm in the US. It's a very difficult time for the country, and I think if I hadn't have spent time as a monk, then I would be suffering a lot more right now. Fortunately, I developed skills to deal with life's difficulties as a monk, so no regrets. Do you still practice Buddhism as a layperson? As far as formal practice goes, I definitely don't do that much sitting and walking meditation anymore. Most of my practice at this point comes down to when I'm at work. Frequently what I'm doing is kind of tedious, and I don't have to think all that much. So I do have time to just kind of like detach from what I'm doing physically and watch the breath come and go. And that does help me a lot, actually. Doing just that much can bring my mind to a place of very nice stillness, which I find gives my mind like more strength to deal with everything throughout the day. And so even though I don't practice that much formally, I'm still quite restrained and mindful of like what's going on inside. I don't really react that strongly to anything. So that's pretty much how I practice now. In the US, is there a short-term monk-led workshop? Something just to attend for a short time to learn the philosophy, and where? So different monasteries will have programs, perhaps, that lay people can come in and join in, plug into a community. At Abhayagiri, for example, they have the Upasika Day. So every now and then they'll have a program at the monastery where lay people can come, and they'll have a structured format for the day with sitting and walking meditation, and then it'll usually be based around a certain theme, like it might be metta or dealing with stress in everyday life, something like that. Aside from formal programs like that, then usually like monks from any monastery will have places that invite them to go and give talks, but it's not formatted like a workshop where they're like answering questions around a certain theme or teaching a certain theme. If you're like really interested to learn from a monk, though, you don't have to wait for a workshop or anything like that. If there happens to be a monastery near you, then you can just drop in for the day. It's going to depend on the monastery. If it's like a monastery which is Thai monks, like monks from Thailand who have been brought to the US to serve as like a cultural centerpiece, then they aren't really going to be that open to speaking with a Westerner about like the philosophy of Buddhism, because they might not even speak English that well. Your best bet is to go to a monastery which is run by Westerners and has a bunch of Western monks, because they're going to be more familiar with what you're looking for, and they're going to be more open to making themselves available to chat with you about whatever you feel like. Which monasteries would you most highly recommend visiting or staying at in Thailand? I've previously stayed twice at Wat Pa Nanachat and visited Wat Mapjan and Wat Papong. Thanks. Wat Pa Nanachat in Ubon would definitely be my recommendation for any Westerner who's going to Thailand and would like to experience the Thai forest tradition, because the monks are very sincere. You'll see monks behaving the way monks are supposed to, and you can chat with them. They can answer any questions you have. You might not be able to do that if you go to a monastery which is mostly or exclusively Thai monks. You said you went to Mapjan. That's another good place to go, in particular because they happen to have a lot of Western monks there, and some of the Thai monks can speak English pretty well, from what I understand. So you have two excellent places there. The other places, if you're a layperson, I'm not really aware of all that many monasteries that would be great for you as a layperson. Like I stayed at Wat Bunyawat with Ajahn Tan, but it's kind of more of a retreat if you're a layperson, because you aren't going to be plugging in at all with the monks there. Like you're completely separate from them. You just come out to the kitchen area, you might sweep a bit, and then you have the meal. If need be, you help clean dishes, but then you just go back to your kuti in the forest, and it's just practicing all day. That's it. If you're interested in like a retreat practice, then in the south of Thailand, I've never been there, but you do have Suwan Mok, which is Ajahn Buddhadasa's monastery, and then they have an associated monastery, which is especially for Westerners who are coming to practice. And so typically if you show up at Suwan Mok, then they might point you over towards the nearby monastery for Westerners, which again is more of a retreat environment. Have you thought about starting a retreat center, or perhaps holding a retreat with lots of meditation? No, I'm not interested in running a retreat center or being anyone's teacher. It's just not for me. I do these videos because I think surely some people out there will derive some benefit from it, but I'm not interested in being anyone's teacher, especially not like one-on-one or leading a group in any way. Having been a monk for almost a decade and then leaving, if your circumstances were to change, would you consider going back to being a monk? Or is this chapter of your life closed for good? So I actually have this recurring dream, like almost bordering on nightmare, where in the dream, I find myself suddenly back in a monastery. Usually it's in Thailand for some reason. And I'm a monk. Oh my goodness, I'm a monk again. And then I have this realization that it means I will never be able to hug my wife, Bae, again. Like I might not even be able to see her ever again. And in the dream, that always feels quite devastating, and I'm very saddened by that. And I'm always very relieved when I wake up from the dream. So it's safe to say that right now, I'm definitely not going to ordain again as a monk anytime soon. But both my wife and I have always said that if both of us decide that we're ready to ordain again, then we will. I don't see that in my immediate future, but as someone who still has faith in Buddhism and still kind of practices like in an everyday life sort of way, it's something I may find my way back to, but for now it's definitely a chapter of my life that is closed. Do you feel like you made the best choice in regards to the tradition that you ordained in? If you had to do it again, would you look into any different traditions or locations before ordaining? I feel like I really lucked out big time in coming across the Thai forest tradition and deciding to pursue this tradition. I never looked that much into the Burmese traditions or the Sri Lankan traditions when I was a layperson. This tradition, the Ajahn Chah in particular, is like the first one basically that I came across that really appealed to me. Like I had seen Bhavana Society, which is Sri Lankan, in West Virginia, and it just didn't really appeal to me. And then I also saw Wat Metta in San Diego, like a good monk, Ajahn Jeff, good monastery, but it just didn't really appeal to me. But like the Ajahn Chah tradition is really what inspired me and drew my attention, and so I went to Abhayagiri, and I always felt like I quite serendipitously made exactly the right decision. And in all the years after that, I never felt any draw towards any other tradition outside of the Thai forest tradition. I was completely happy with it. It's totally for me. Wouldn't change anything, won't change anything in the future. So those are all the questions for now that I pulled from comments in previous videos. If you would like to have some more questions answered, then please feel free to leave it in the comments down below. And that's all I have for now, and I'll see you next time. Bye.